Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Pros in Politics Podcast, where we are polished and poised for greatness and impact. My name is Kahala, and I'm your host. Today, we are branching off into a segment that we touch on all the time, but we are going to do a series throughout the year on the Divine Nine. That's right, the Black Greek letter organizations of the Divine Nine. And of course, we had to start at the very top with the men of Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And today we have with us Brother Denale Powell. Hello, Denale.
Hello, how's it going this morning?
How are you?
Doing great. I'm honored to be on the show. So
you were looking awesome in your black and old gold this morning.
Old gold all the time. I appreciate it. You as well.
Thank you. It is so good to have you with us. And you were just so eager and willing, really,
Absolutely.
to come on and have a conversation with us and our listening and viewing audience about the men of Phi Alpha.
Absolutely. 06, absolutely.
06. So we always start with something just a little. Of course, we already know that you're Greek.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we know each other? How did we get connected? Because
you know what?
I just love the story.
Absolutely. So we actually been connected, and here's the power of social media too, but we've been connected for a while on social media, and actually we met several times in passing at the NAACP of the East St. Louis.
In the East St. Louis chapter, absolutely.
So we met several times there. Honored you've always been on the board and of those events there. And then we actually reconnected, just reached out on social media and said, look, come on, I'm over at Harris-Stowe State University, the only HBCU in the city of St. Louis.
That's right.
I said, you need to come over. You need to, you're powerful in your impact. And I saw that in our conversation. I said, you need to come over to Harris-Stowe and just take a visit, just a tour. So just walk down, organic conversations with quite a few people there, but the impact, and then a lot of common friends, commonalities, and some of the same circles. So I think it was kind of, I call it organic and natural in that connection. But it was a pleasure. What I didn't realize is all the things that you do for us, the podcast and other areas. I knew you kind of in your legal hat and your areas of expertise there. I knew you were from the East St. Louis chapter and so forth. So
yes. Well, I'm just so happy that you reached out because, again, like you said, the power of social media, because, again, met each other in passing, running a lot of the same circles, but the connection I'm just so happy for, because this is Mr. Network, ladies and gentlemen. So
Mr. Network approved.
He is going to get you connected, get you the resources and the people that you need. And so we're happy to be connected to you. And
Absolutely.
Then I'm personally happy to be connected as
Absolutely.
well.
And like I said from the beginning, anything I can do to help, support, and just the awareness of what you're doing is powerful and impactful. And the world needs to see that, right? It's bigger than us.
So tell us about your journey to Alpha Land.
Absolutely, man. You take me back. College days swiftly passed. Everybody know about that. So I, originally, I guess born in Detroit, Michigan, grew up in the Chicago area, a place called Kankakee, Illinois. Attended SIU Edwardsville on a full scholarship for wrestling and academic scholarship back in '97. So I'm dating myself, I guess. But my journey to Alpha started at SIU, on the campus of SIU Edwardsville, where I met several individuals that was impactful to me at that time in my life that were men of Phi Alpha. The Iota Pi chapter ended up pledging spring 1999.
Old head, okay? Old head, all right.
The 90s Greeks, right? 1999, but I'll go back really quick because, and it was 9 it's 9 if we're still tight to this day. We'll celebrate our 25th year next year, so we have to do something big. But the impact of the brothers then, and keep in mind SIUE, great experience, great campuses, PWI, but that made my college experience that much more enriched and developed, and from a personal and professional development. So again, interacted with several, and I could name drop some of the brothers that I met, but they were impactful at that time, and then that showed me the way to the oldest and coldest fraternity, 1906, Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But that's originally how I got inducted. I was again on the wrestling team. Several members were actually Alphas at the chapter, so we were talking, just naturally kind of built a bond. And then I had some friends that were already members as well.
And that says a lot that you were able to navigate being an athlete and going through your intake process with Alpha, because that's not easy. And we're going to call it the intake process.
Intake, yes. Okay.
We're going to call it the intake process.
Intake process.
We're going to call it the intake process. But the fact that you were able to navigate being a successful athlete and then going into Alpha is just, it says a lot about you. It says a lot about your determination and your discipline and your ability to be able to focus.
Absolutely.
Because we've all known in college, and see, my college days were 95 to 2000.
Okay.
I don't have no problem. I want to believe I'm aging gracefully. Okay?
Oh, you are.
But I don't have a problem with saying. And so, but we knew a lot of people who pledged.
Absolutely. Talk about it.
And it didn't quite work out academically.
Yes.
Okay. And they either got suspended or just completely went home on the bus. As our podcast producers, they took that bus home or whatever. And but that's never the objective, right? That's never the objective for you. That's never the objective for your parents or your family.
Absolutely.
And that's not the objective for your organization either, because it's all about scholarship and scholastics and academics and things of that nature. So the fact that you were able to do both successfully and then look at you now, that says a whole lot about you.
Well, thank you. But you know what I talk to the young scholars today about, even at Harris-Stowe State University and even SIU still, I'm tied to the Black alumni and I'm very involved over there as well, is time management and how we manage that time. And that's a whole nother workshop in itself. But a lot of times I say committed time, maintenance time, and discretionary time, and how we break that time up in life, family, and everything. So really quick, committed time is the time that obviously your full-time job, if you're a student athlete, your sports, if you're in any committed organizations or work, that's committed time. Maintenance time, when you sleep or you're prepping, you're building yourself back up for the next day.
A little bit of self-care, that's right. We love self-care here.
You need self-care, that's a must. And then discretionary time, I always say the time you need to become legendary, right? So you can spend that discretionary time playing basketball, with the ladies or with the fellas, or you can read a book. You can do something to build yourself up, start a business, do something to kind of get you going in that direction of become legendary, so that's what I like to say.
I love that.
But not having that I wasn't fine-tuned back then. Now at the age I'm at now, I'm still mastering it, but now I kind of really try to work on that and explain that to student athletes of today.
Well, and when you know better, you do better.
Absolutely.
And, foolishness is kind of like bound up in the heart of a child, so you grow and you have experiences and life gets to lifing. And so you learn that, if I don't self-care, then I'm going to crash. If I don't study, I'm going to fail. If I don't, put in time in my relationships where it's needed, I'm going to end up divorced or have a strained relationship with a parent or whatever. And so you learn that through life experience, because I have so many young ladies who are like, oh, and you're a lawyer and you're a mom and you podcast, you do. I'm like, baby, this is 45 years of life. Okay. This did not always look like this, and it ain't perfect now. So I know what it looks like on screen because he got these good cameras. Right. But, my reality is still a reality when I get home with my children and my husband.
Absolutely.
So, no, that is awesome. So tell us all about Alpha, Phi Alpha, Fraternity Incorporated, and your chapter that you're in now.
Absolutely. So the last 4 years, I've been a member of the great the City of Champions, the East St. Louis Delta Epsilon Lambda chapter, which is chartered. It was chartered in 1947. So we just celebrated our 75th year. We had a big event culmination last December, around December 4th, Cornell University, Ithaca, New York. You guys know that's where we're founded. But so our chapter, a lot of great scholar brothers in different realms of business, entrepreneurship, corporate, political. So we have a pretty good mix in our chapter, and it's growing. That chapter in particular has been growing. I can say over the last 24 years, I'd probably say it's probably at its height in the last 4 or 5 years, just with reclamation. Myself, I was reclaimed probably about 6 or so years ago, and it made sense for the Delta Epsilon Lambda chapter for me personally because of the direct relationship with SIU Edwardsville.
Absolutely.
Out of Pi chapter, we were getting everything together with that. But outside of that, Alpha is bigger than we all stand on the shoulders of giants. So I could name people in the chapter that are monumental, that were impactful to me as a young scholar, and today at almost 44, that just impacted me and still impacts me. So, and then knowing in fact, we have some great events coming up that I can get into at some point. And some are tied to both of the chapters in the St. Louis area, and then we have a few events that I'll talk about later that's tied to just the Delta Epsilon Lambda chapter as well. Awesome. So again, our charter, again, been about 75 plus years, obviously as a whole over 100 plus years, 1906 founded, obviously.
So what I like about it is the fact that you said you all partner,
yes.
not just you all go outside of just DEL.
Absolutely, you have to.
And you work together with other chapters to bring about whatever change or whatever initiatives on the national or the chapter level that you all are focusing on and working on, for the community. Because that's what it's about, right? It's about community. Absolutely. It's about family. It's about social action, right? And justice. It's about reform. All of the things that the culture is supporting, and then the Divine Nine members are supporting. Because at the end of the day, when you think about anything from politics to community service,
we have a voice.
It's the D9. Like, I'm sorry, like people could, people could say what they want to say. I'm not saying that other entities don't.
Right.
But when we see everything from our Soror, who is the second most powerful human being on the planet.
Absolutely.
Our wonderful Vice President Kamala Harris, like a lot of that was all the Greeks, not just Alpha Kappa Alpha, but collective. All the D9 and all the Black community and the whole culture, coming behind and, pushing and doing the things. We're the forefront at days at the Capitol. We are in communities. We're in domestic violence shelters with shelves and, just doing Easter egg hunts and all the things that we need to do as a community to build community as a whole, and especially the Black community.
Absolutely. It's our job. Everybody who's a part of the Divine Nine, whether you've been in 20, 30 years or, 2 days, the impact of everything you mentioned, community, scholarship, and being intentional about that and actually making sure we're present because we're impacting lives. We have the Voteless Peoples to Hopeless Peoples, a big campaign. We have the mentoring group that we have, so we mentor young men to see men like them to elevate themselves, Lights of Alpha, we call it, in the Delta Epsilon Lambda chapter. But all chapters have a mentoring component in these pillars that we have, and same with the sororities. And even, as you mentioned, a lot of D9 individuals have positions in the political realm, in the corporate landscape, in the entrepreneurship community. And we have to use our power and leverage that as such. And it would be doing a disservice if we didn't, the way I look at it. So
absolutely. Definitely. So on a personal level, yes, you keep mentioning Harris-Stowe State University.
Absolutely.
And of course, again, the D9.
Yes.
And then as a culture and a community, we love HBCUs.
Absolutely.
And we support HBCUs.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay.
And how we can even support in that area.
Absolutely.
Briefly.
Absolutely. First, I'm giving a shout out because she just had her investiture at the university. Your soror, Dr. LaTanya Collins Smith. Congratulations. And we see you. She's had a big event. The first Black female president of Harris-Stowe history, right? So, and that's our leader at Harris-Stowe State University. We're obviously been around 160 plus years, right? And the trajectory of that is and the story of that in itself is amazing. Start off as an educational college, as teachers college, and now we have 50 plus disciplines with 4 different. We have the School of Arts and Sciences, School of Business, School of Education, which was a pillar, and then we now have the new School of STEM, which will be coming. So those are 4 different divisions of Harris-Stowe State University. My involvement, again, we're been there about 6 years now. Start off in several roles. So started off actually, my background, went to school for graphic design, web development. Shout out to the producer. I've been doing that for 20 plus years. One of my first businesses actually was a graphic multimedia company. So I saw 6 years ago, I saw an opportunity to become the creative graphic designer for the university. So that was my end there. So I started off in the community IT department as a full-time graphic creative director role. That later turned into marketing in the marketing department. Myself and Dr. Stewart, we kind of formed that department a few years back. Shout out to Dr. Stewart and the marketing team, where it's at now. And then the last 3 years, they kind of got a hold of Mr. Network as a person, and then they kind of created a role for me in athletics. They know I was kind of part-time coaching. I'm a part-time track coach. We just had a great weekend. We'll get into that later. We were at Jeff City last weekend. This weekend, we were at Central Missouri. So I was kind of volunteering and helping out with the track program, and they said, we want to create a position for athletics for you. So now the last 2 years, I'm the director of athletic marketing and development. Pretty much a fancy title for fundraising, sponsorships, strategic partnerships, helping develop the young scholars job opportunities for placement after they graduate. So it's one thing to have a great academic and athletic career when you're there, but it's the step that follows that. So we say after the ball stops bouncing, or after after you hang the spikes up or you put the bat up, what's the next move? So the next move a lot of times is finding employment, starting that business, having relationships already set up your junior, senior year. So you just transition right into that. I talk about it. College to corporate transition is tough for a lot of times. So we want to make that as smooth as possible.
Don't we know?
Yeah, especially when you're an athlete and you're coming from being the man and then you're like the real world comes up. Or if you're in sometimes the divine nine, going back to that and you graduate, the real world is sometimes scary to a lot of our scholars. So help navigate that path of success for them and kind of map it out. Again, we didn't do everything right, but we're the mentors and we lift as we pull, I say. So it's our job for that. So
absolutely. I love that because, I remember coming out of law school.
Yes.
I felt like every law firm that I applied to was just like immediately shredding my resume. Like I
Wow.
felt like it was crazy, but
Yes.
I am very transparent about my testimony in law school.
Absolutely.
So my father passed away. My grandmother passed like literally the month before I started.
Wow.
My dad passed while I was in the throes of law school. So I had a lot going on. So my academics suffered because when my father initially got sick, I wasn't in Indiana in school. I was at Barnes Jewish by his bedside.
Absolutely.
And so it really took a lot for me to really get back into what I needed to do. And I inevitably graduated. But when I did, like I wasn't top 2%, right?
Right.
And so even with, a lot of them trying to find like people of color, because as we've discussed a million times on here, African-American women represent only 2% of all lawyers in the country.
Wow. Congratulations to you. Again.
People love to, have that, black lawyer or whatever in their firm. But I just felt like I just couldn't get a break. But as God would have it, I eventually got on with the Public Defender Agency, which was perfect. Okay. And then I transitioned on to several other positions. And now, I'm 20 years in and I'm like, oh my goodness.
That's
but
incredible.
I remember when you couldn't pay somebody to give you a job when you graduated from law school. But a lot of young people, even dealing with my own children, my oldest, like it's hard to get them to understand that we actually know what we're talking about.
I've had the same discussion
oh
with my daughter.
Goodness. And we've actually been there and done that. And if you would just listen, like you could avoid so many of the mistakes and pitfalls that we made.
Absolutely.
And that's why we do what we do, right? You work very hard. This is one of the hardest working men. And I'm like, I know I work very hard and I don't do that for nothing. So if you would just listen to me.
That's all we want. This is a parent had or not. That's all we want, to listen and to pour in and to build up our families, but our youth in general, because a lot of times we've done that. So, and we still have to bridge that gap, I think, because when you're 15, 16, 17, you know it all. So, but a lot of times you have resources that can give you the game, so to speak, and you can walk a lot easier path. But the legacy, and we'll talk about legacy as a whole, because that's what we all should be about. But that's the part of building, paying it forward, and being intentional about a lot of the things that I do is tied to legacy building. We'll get into that later. But as far as, you're right. And congratulations, you, that 2%, that's huge. And my daughter at one point mentioned law. Then she started finding out, how all these different, you got to go through the process. She changed a little bit. And that's okay. But just to know that, to see somebody that looks like her that's doing that, and you said for 20 plus years, salute to you, first of all, because that's not an easy industry to navigate in that space. But I'm telling you, when they see you in that space, it gives them that much more power, because a lot of times our youth don't know their power and worth. So
yes. So tell us about the many wonderful things that DEL has coming up.
Absolutely, some great events.
And then we will. Well, I'll wait. I'll let you finish.
Okay. So again, Phi Alpha, Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Epsilon Lambda chapter. We have partnered with the Epsilon Lambda chapter in St. Louis, Missouri. We actually have May 6th, the third. Actually, this is the third time we're doing it, but it's the Gateway City Derby, and that's going to be held 4 seasons. Downtown St. Louis, Missouri. It's gonna be a great event. From
I can't wait.
3 to 7. Invite your friends, your chapters. We want this to be an event. Obviously, it's a D9 centric event, but we want to invite the community out, and things like that. It's a good time. We have the Derby going on. We have a hats competition. We have the DJ Fat Mac on the 1s and 2s. Shout out to, that's my pledge or my intake, for SIU Spring '98. But he'll be on the 1s and 2s. We have a lot of just good entertainment going on. I always say the grown up turn ups. We have hashtag wear your best, Sunday's
I
best.
love that. The grown up turn up.
Grown up turn up.
I'm ready. I'm gonna have to get my dress and my fascinator.
Yeah,
I'll be ready.
yeah. Come on
I'll
out.
be ready.
They have the hats. We had towards the end. They had we had the hat competition. So some giveaways and things like that. Good time just to, no pun intended, to let your hair down, have a good time, network. It's with your peers and different. Not just the D9 member, but just different members of the community. So it'd be a good time. Then following that event is another joint event by both chapters across the City of Champion Alphas and then the St. Louis chapter of Alphas. We're actually doing the brunch. So it's that Sunday. It's a brunch right after. It's in O'Fallon Regency. So I know we're on the Illinois side. So we try to do when we do joint events like that. We did one back in December where it was a party. So we try to do joint events because one, it shows unity. And Alpha is a brand, and Alpha, we all represent Alpha. You know, it's different chapters throughout the nation. You know, but it's working together and showing that collective unity and that, and then you power in numbers, right? So building the relationships there. The brunch is a good time. I'll bring my wife had a good time, and she's hard. She'll tell me if it's not a good event. So she had a good time at both.
She's brutally honest.
Shout out to my wife.
I love it.
So she had a good time at both events last year. This year we're trying to do it bigger and better. Same location for the brunch. We have a live band performing, a couple of vendors. We have a wine vendor. We have I believe a cigar vendor. So we have different vendors in the building for both events as well. So it'll be a good weekend. So a grown up turn up, a good time. So looking forward to it. That's May 6th. The Derby's May 6th from 3 to about 7. Then the brunch is that following Sunday. Then we even have discounts on rooms if you want that at the Four Seasons as well, if you want to make it a weekend. So my wife and I are making an anniversary weekend too. So that way we get working.
That is nice.
So.
Well, that is nice. Well, before we close, we've talked about reaching back and building a legacy. And
Absolutely.
Of course, we know that, we're all incorporated and perpetuity
Absolutely.
is ours. But what would you say to the young man coming behind you? Why choose Alpha?
Oh yeah, who's watching Alpha? You said.
So if there's a young man out there and you're talking to him, why should he choose Black and Ogo over anybody else?
Anybody else? It's so easy for me to watch the members of the organization Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and watch how we move. And I say that in all intentionality and from a mentorship standpoint, from a fatherhood standpoint, from a being a good person, and all these things you want to represent. We're men first, right? But you want to represent doing things the right way from your. All we have is our words. So, like I say, if it's a leadership, most alphas are in leadership positions, right? Most of the time we are fathers, we're husbands, so we look at that role and how they live in their day-to-day life. So I would say that to anybody. When the cameras aren't on, right? Right now the cameras are on, we can, and all that. But I'm intentional about, like I have a 3-year-old as well, and I'm intentional about being there for him. And I even have a business created for him at 3, right? Because that's how we talk about legacy building. I'm a life insurance and investments professional as well. And that's all it's bigger than me. So it's most alphas, they know that, they understand the legacy lineage. So we want to make sure my son's kids are fine. So that's how, when we talk about legacy. So I work so hard. People say, you have 4 businesses, you're in all these organizations, you do all this stuff. How? We talked about time management, but it's about empowering our youth and for them to see their own power and worth and value. And a lot of alphas have those characteristics. I'm not saying they're doing all the crazy stuff I'm doing, but they know their value and worth, and they know that it's bigger than them. And we stand on the shoulders of giants. Everybody knows a lot of people name drop, Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Thurgood Marshall and Jesse. It's a ton of alphas that we stand on the shoulders of them, even in local chapters. I could mention his brothers. I give a shout out to brother Icy Mike Boyd, who's a big pillar of our chapter, right? And he's ran for several different district levels and had multiple areas of impact for a lot of brothers from the Lincoln University. Then we have brother Alvin Dawes. I can name several brothers that I personally took something from and poured to them. And hopefully I can be that for younger brothers thinking about Alpha or, and again, I'll say this, Divine Nine isn't for everybody, but at the same time, mirror those brothers and those characteristics of such. So, but legacy building definitely, and then community. I would be remiss to say if I'm not I am in the community for real. So I'm the advisor for NAACP, the Harris-Stowe chapter at Harris-Stowe. We have about 60 members. That organization I just mentioned, I'm a track coach primarily. Obviously, I'm in athletics and I like sports, but it's really, for me, is to impact, mentor, and build them up. They're young scholars and they're doing a great job. We have some conference champs. Shout out to Nia Parker. Shout out to Xavier Flemster. We got Richard. Shout out to all those guys. They're at Harris-Stowe right now doing great work academically and on the field. And they need to get their props, so to speak. So I'll make sure they get that. But it's bigger than track. It's bigger than us, right? So a lot of times when we have to be intentional about letting them know that they're powerful and that they are going to be the future leaders. So I'll leave it at that because I can be long, but that's the part, and that's why I do all the things that I do.
Well, I love it. Okay. And then, there's always, it has to be said. I mean, there's also something about being the part of the first. You know what I'm saying? It's something about that. You know what I'm saying? So no shade. I'm just saying it's just something about that.
First of all, can't say no. But no, yeah.
Well, I love it. And thank you so much. You are doing amazing work.
Thank you.
On the track field, off the track field, in the university, in your business, in your family.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Heavy D.
Heavy D.
His baby boy, Heavy D.
Baby network.
It's just amazing to see. And you are so willing to help. Like you're never trying to keep it to yourself because that doesn't help anyone.
Doesn't.
And it really doesn't help you because we're blessed to be a blessing.
Absolutely.
And when you are willing to help other people, God will bless you in return.
Absolutely.
The stinginess, why? We
have to change that as a culture sometimes.
Well, we say we can all eat.
Right.
We can all be successful, and then that just makes life better for everybody.
Absolutely.
Our families and our children and our children's children. But
absolutely.
I just thank you so much for starting our series on the Divine Nine and just being such an excellent example of all things Alpha Phi Alpha. You are everything, like I say all the time about some of my stories, you are everything your founders intended. Okay?
Thank you. I definitely take that because that's our founders are the shoulders we stand on. So that's huge. I appreciate that. And
will you come back?
I'll come back anytime you need. I told you anytime you need me. Mr. Network approved. This show is Mr. Network approved. So anything you need from me or anything in my network, I got you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you. And we can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for tuning in today to Pros in Politics Podcast, where we are polished and poised for greatness and impact. I hope you enjoyed this episode today as much as I did. So, but in the meantime, we'll see you next Friday. And please like, love, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much. Have a good one.